welcome everyone. So let me introduce you to episode 2 of Self-Love, interweaving, intersecting, dancing with self-care. And I think this is a very interesting topic because I think we have to also take in the generations. Because when I asked my mother what self-care was, she immediately went to, well, it's taking care of others. And then that makes me feel good. So I'm taking care of myself through taking care of others. And I think people who are parents understand that. If I'm taking care of my children, I feel less stressed and I'm taking care of my own mental health. If I'm taking care of business, I am also taking care of myself. So I think that's how the generations before us were into self-care, was if my family is okay, if my family is all right, then I have peace and I have peace of mind. But if, and as we know with family, we can't sometimes live their lives for them and they go through their own journey. And when does that happen where we have, say, someone who is in addiction or an alcoholic within the family, or they are self-destructing, and you've tried to save them and it doesn't work because they have to take care of themselves? What part of your self-care is, Archie, what part of your self-care is stepping away from that and giving them the help that they need and knowing that they need more professional help? You know, that this is where self-care gets very, very interesting, because the old-fashioned aspect, if we want to call it, or the traditional aspect of our grandparents, were about making sure everybody in the family was taken care of financially, taken care of with our own with shelter. But what happens when someone isn't taking care of themselves through their own mental health issues? And that is when you need to look at your own self-care. And I think self-care now in 2022, before COVID, there was an aspect of self-care that was really attached to pampering. You know, facials, getting my hair done. That was like what I was considering self-care. And I think when we realize that we have to sometimes step back from things for people, and that is taking care of ourselves. And that sometimes is also with family, right? There's also this aspect of self-love that I find can be a little weaponizing, you know, where, well, I love myself more than what you want me to do. And it can be aggressive and weaponized. And I think self-love is really about connection. Connecting to the life that you are here to live. And in times gone by, I think people tagged along. They tagged along with being in the in crowd or being with what other people were doing, and they tagged along with industries that were going to give them jobs and they were going to get a watch after 25 years. And if you were doing what you loved, then you were fortunate. But I think self-love in today's realm is very attached to really having that inner listening of what you're here to do and what you're here to go further out there than maybe your family. And depending on what that is, sometimes your family doesn't agree with it. They don't want you to become an artist. They want you to become a doctor. They don't want you to become a comedian. They want you to become, you know, something else, a manager. And your self-love, at your connection, at this calling, at this drive, at this knowing that you have to create your own company and you have to innovate something, is a connection of self-love. Loving this life that you're in, not tagging along with what everybody else is doing, and not tagging along with the crowd. You know, because maybe you're going to do something that people think are, well, that's crazy. What would you put all your effort into that for? And deep down, you just have this unshakable knowing, or this thing that's just not leaving you, and you have to trust that. And self-love is about that trust. You know, we talk about love with another, that there has to be trust. But when we get to being in self-love, and we get the messages, and we get the intuition, and we get, oh, you have to do this, and you're like, gulp. I don't know how that's going to work out. I have to take this big leap. I don't know how to do that. Then all this fear comes up. And maybe this future self of yours is telling you to go forward and do it, but you really have to have that self-love to listen to the message, which then goes into sacred intuition. But let's stick with self-love, because intuition is a whole different ballgame. But when it's a factor, it factors in, you know, it's a thread. But self-love is really not having to convince other people why you're going to do something or why you're doing something. It is having the self-love enough to say, hey, I know you don't get it, and that's okay. You know, it's not weaponizing what you're doing of like, I'll show you, but maybe you are, you know, need to do that to get yourself motivated, you know, whatever floats your boat. But the self-love is also, Ani had said, she'd sent a message and she said, I'll just read it for you here. You know, self-love was leaving my good on paper federal job, right, to become a full-time mother of 4 without judgment. This gives me the space needed to tune in when they needed me with the pause and joy tools. I'm teaching the children how to self-love and taking the actions that I needed when I tuned in and listened. I would share with women, especially, that self-love is not having to play in the male paradigm. Self-love is tuning into the self every day. You know, and this is what's even, you know, happened, that during COVID, a lot of people have realized that they loved spending time with their family. They've loved spending time with their children, but they also want to kind of, okay, well, I'm going to create what business can I create from home? Giving yourself permission to actually, you know, work from home, whether you've got families or not. So I'm just not built for the corporate structure. And also the self-care in that aspect is, say I'm in a job or I'm doing something that I really enjoy the people, right, that I'm working with. We're a really cool team. and we take care of one another, right? We've got each other's backs, right? We go on Friday nights out together and whatever. But the self-love is telling me I need to leave here because I'm not getting the promotions. I'm not getting the acknowledgement. I'm not getting the credit, but I really like these people. But these people might feel abandoned because these are my buddies, these are my friends. But my self-love is telling me, and it's not about self-care at that point, this self-love is telling me there's more that I have to do in another space. Maybe it's my own thing. But if I don't take that direction, then I won't start my own business that then my friends can come and work with. So there's so many aspects to it. Oh, hi Damon, I missed you too. So it's that self-love is, I think if we all loved ourselves, not like I'm in my self-love at the expense of what you want or caring about you, right? And also the self-care aspect, when we do hurt people and we do upset people, you know, that affects our care, because we do care about each other. We do care to see people thrive. We do care to see our friends make it, right? Because we care about others. But there's an aspect also when we go down this road where you hear sometimes when people get into a state of they're depressed, or they're kind of walking to, because depression doesn't happen overnight. It slowly builds grain by grain, and it starts to feel, you know, I'm a little down, I'm a little I don't feel right, I don't feel this, and then it just more and more and more piles on till you get into this place where you're completely immobilized and feel alone and that no one cares. And if you're feeling like that right now, if you're feeling, you know what, no one cares, no one cares, I would implore you to really start with yourself and start with, okay, no one cares. So I am going to decide in this moment that I care. I care. And I'm going to build out my energetic field from that. I'm going to start caring about myself and the things that I used to enjoy that I've stopped doing. But maybe I might need some help in that. And here's where self-love comes in. The self-love says, but I'm scared. I'm scared because I've not done it for such a long time. I haven't went to the gym. I haven't went on a hike. I haven't went to see a music venue, to see a band that I used to love. And you ask for help. The self-love is having the love for yourself to say, I need a wingman or a wingwoman, right? I need a wing person. I need some help here just to kind of get my momentum going. I would really like it if you, like, take even coming out of what we've came out of, you know, with a pandemic. Some people want to go out for lunch, want to go out for dinner, but they are hesitating and they want to get back socially, but they are having certain feelings and they know they need to take care of themselves socially and go back out, but they are not recognizing that the love for oneself is that they need to have the humility to ask for help, have the deep sense of what would love do here right now. Well, like if I saw a child and it was scared to jump in the pool, would I get in the pool and help it? Yes, I would. So maybe I need to ask for that help. maybe I need to ask for that guidance, that that person that's kind of going to hold space for me right now. And there's other aspects of self-love that I wanted to touch on that are to do with having that awareness as well because I don't really think it is loving when we pretend too long that we've got it and we're gonna do it, and but really I'm lacking the confidence, or there's some fears there. But I have this bravado, I have this pretense, I have this mask that makes me look like I can do it, but there's a fear or a limitation that I am not acknowledging. And to me, acknowledging it is self-love. When you can say, I think I'm holding myself back. And I don't really like this expression right now of call it out, because I heard something the other day that was playing along with this self-love, and it was someone who had said that, you know, when people are diminishing you, when people are doing this to you, call them out, call them out, call them out. But then you're just constantly going around really energetically annoyed and irritated and pissed off, calling everybody out at diminishing you. And that can be exhausting. And it can also make you really angry and irritated. And it's a lot of energy. And I believe that the self-love there would be, okay, what is it I need to change in myself that I am allowing this impression by others to diminish me? That I'm allowing them to treat me like a doormat, that I'm allowing people to think that they can get away with gaslighting me. Because maybe I'm gaslighting myself. And I think when we start to activate that self-love, we say to ourselves, oh, that's because I give this impression that I'm mute, or I have nothing to say, or I need to collapse my people pleasing, or my pandering to others, or give people this false impression of who I am, because it's not who I am, and I need to now do work on myself that encapsulates who I truly am, and allow people to not like this version of me because they didn't sign up for this version. They signed up for the people pleaser. Right? It's so the easiest thing to do is find a practice that you are going to enjoy, that is going to inquire at who you are, who you truly are, without all the behaviors, all the skills that you've gained to defend yourself that are coming from conditioning, and really kind of discover a way of speaking, a verbiage, a communication that you aren't used to. And one of my other students the other day, she has this opportunity to go to the Hebrides, and she said, it's so uncomfortable because it's so in the unknown, I don't know what's going to happen, but it makes me feel so alive. Wow. Made her feel so alive. So does that mean that when you're in the comfort and you're too comfortable, you're dead? there's this dead zone that you're staying in too long. And I think self-love acknowledges the dead zone, the comfortability that is comfortable, but it's not alive, it's not electric, it's not giving you that vitality, that life force. But if it's too uncomfortable, you have that gulp, energetic gulp that puts you into paralysis. And then self-love again asks for help. It asks for, how can I move through this? What workshop, what book, what teachings, what do I need to give myself that are going to be tools of practicality that are going to allow me to live that life that's alive? That to me is self-love, because I think when we're so good at convincing ourselves that we're content. Because really contentment is fullness. It's that living a life that you came here to live. And it is only when you are truly at the end of your life and you're able to look back at it, that you really have a sense of, did I love myself enough to, why didn't I go for those things? Why didn't I do it? Why didn't I write that book? Why didn't I take that leap? Why didn't I become more uncomfortable? Why didn't I love more? And then I think we have a sense of self-love of now, before we're on our deathbed. Like what would I be like if I go back to my childhood and I go back forward and then I bring those two aspects into the now and really say, is this loving? You know, I think people who are parents really understand this. When you know that you have to, like, love has to really kind of push the child to be on the roller coaster that it's terrified of going on or getting in the pool. But you know it wouldn't be loving to allow that child to not have its experience, but you have to find the way in that is maybe you going on the roller coaster with them, holding their hands or hugging them. You know, and sometimes we need that self-hug or from someone or from other people that guides us into a space that we can love ourselves fully without the training wheels, without permission from someone else, without validation from other people. You know, I am self-validated to go for it or paint it, write it, innovate it, create it. And I think we have to look at how we came out of this history of, you know, the people who owned land, the people who were landowners, and then the people who, you know, handed that down to their, you know, the Viscount this, the Marquis of this. And then when the Newfoundlands came along and other people went out and they gave themselves permission to go and create better lives for themselves. That is self-love. Taking chances, not believing that somebody else's narrative or, oh, aren't you scared doing that? Aren't you scared putting yourself out there like that? Oh, I would be scared if I was. And they would be. But you have to then have the self-love to know that that's not yours. And is the person trying to poison your well? Maybe. Is the person, like, if you get into all the analysis of what everybody is trying to do to you, you'll get nothing done. So it's really about having that self-love that allows people to have their slings and arrows, as Shakespeare used to put it, the slings and arrows to put you off course, and not because they're bad people, but just because you're doing something that they maybe don't have the self-love to do. And then later on, you'll be their inspiration. But in the meantime, they don't want you to maybe leave the nest, or they don't want you to leave the group, or they don't want you to, because they feel left behind, which is in their own head sometimes. So self-care and self-love kind of dance with one another, but also like looking of like, what is it that I need to take care of in this realm that I am kind of gaslighting myself, or I'm pretending that I can do it and I can't, and I need some help here. And that self-love to know that, you know, because also that self-love, you know, because sometimes people, you know, especially when I spoke to my mother earlier, it felt a little narcissistic to her. Like only that's self-love. But self-love isn't, the self-love I'm talking about isn't at the expense of others, it's inclusive of others. Because when you really have that self-love to go and do the things that you're here to do, people will enjoy watching you doing it, and then you'll enjoy doing it, and they'll enjoy knowing you and knowing that you're succeeding and knowing that you're doing it. So there's all just, there's different facets of it, and really self-love is giving yourself that permission to be part of your own life, not tagging along with life. Giving yourself that rubber stamp to do it and see what it goes. But we're only 100 years out of, you know, I remember when Queen Victoria was, she married her Albert, and they were very much in love, which that was the kind of talk of Europe. They were very much in love. It was a love marriage. It was a love marriage. So self-love in itself, without it being sacrifice, you know, which my mother saw as my grandmother definitely saw self-care and self-love as sacrificing for your family. And now self-care, even from going from pampering oneself with cucumber on your eyes and a face mask, has gone into mental health. You know, taking care of yourself when you are like, what is it that I need to do for myself if I'm going into a situation where people are going to throw slings and arrows? And it might be like at family times, at Thanksgiving, it might be at Christmas times, or at New Year's, or other holidays and gatherings where, you know, people are like, well, what are you doing that for? Would you change that for? Would you leave that job of like 10 years for to go and do this thing? That was stupid. And being able to have the care that you need of collapsing whatever charge you have around people judging you. Because you can set boundaries, but there's always going to be one that's going to get in, that's going to get to you. So at some point, you can't police everybody around you. You have to look at the triggers within yourself and where that comes from, and find modalities or find healing that isn't dabbling, that is actually going to pull it out from the root and collapse it and neutralize it so that you can get on with your life. And to me, that is self-care. When I look at some of my students and the things that they take care of before they even put themselves into situations, that is part of their alignment. That is part of their self-care. Being able to You know, send energy, send Reiki to a space that they're having a meeting in. Being able to send energy to the court case, sending energy to the friction that they have with a friend, or sending energy to a member of the situation that's within the family, so that they can not go into anger, not go into worry about it, and see maybe clearly the solution. That's self-care for them. Self-care is also, you know, what time am I taking for myself? You know, when am I unplugging? Am I doing my practice? Am I doing my meditation practice? Am I connecting? Do I trust myself? It's like when people go around and they have a great idea and they tell everyone they're a great idea until one person steals it. Because they're looking for someone, and everybody says it's great. Everyone. Oh yeah, that's great. Or some people are like, yeah, whatever. But self-love will stop talking about it and do it. And self-love is the doing. Self-love is the execution. It is the action. And it is starting with, hey, maybe I don't even know if I love myself. If that is the case, then look at the parts that you do like. Start with what you like. And, you know, it can be really simple things. Maybe you like how you laugh when you see great comedy. Maybe you like how you think about people and you know when to reach out to them. Maybe you like that aspect. Maybe you like how you draw. And then from there you can start to explore the love that you extend to other people, putting that towards yourself. You know, if you do get up and you go for a hike or you go for a walk, and understanding that you are loving, you know, that's self-care, right? That's self-care. But it's also like a love of, this is the only body that you've got, and you have a lifetime. Loving what you do have, even the way you think about things, that is unique to you. And loving those aspects about yourself. Because you could only have thought of it in that way, and that's what makes great ideas or great innovations or great companies and creativity, is that could only have come through your voice. Maybe it's how you are the person that people come to with their thoughts. They feel that you're the safe space. You know, loving that part of yourself that's just second nature to you. And then we get into kind of like taking things for granted. So self-love is sometimes a blind spot for a lot of people, but it definitely is about putting you in your own story or your own life. You're not just tagging along with what would be the next job that so-and-so's going to that could get me in the door, or well, the next kind of progression that everybody thinks I should do is this, but really what I really want to do is start my own thing, or what I really want to do is come out of this industry and go into another industry. How can I do that? Or what I really want to do is, you know, a course of yoga teacher training. How can I make that happen? And knowing that if I just kind of put that out there, the answer will reveal itself. And maybe it'll be in a week. I remember I had a person who, she put down 3 things that she really wanted to do in a job here. And they didn't really make any sense. And someone had invited her to the Hollywood Bowl. They had an extra ticket for a band. And she went, and she wasn't really into the band, but she wanted to go to the bowl. She thought it'd be fun. So she went to the Hollywood Bowl, and she was watching this band, and she was with some people that she didn't know. And the conversation came up with this woman about what she did as a job. And every single thing that this woman put down, these 3 bizarre things that she didn't even know existed in one job, this woman had that job. And she was able to ask her questions about how she got into it and what she would need to do and where else this would be. But she got really, really clear about what she wanted. And I want you to get really, really clear about the things that bring you joy, or the things that you don't know how that would knit together. But there may be an opportunity that is still to reveal itself to you. But you're going to have the self-love enough to use your imagination and play with what is possible, what is out there, what would that look like. And I want you to do that over the next few weeks. Take 2 weeks and just ponder. I wonder what would make me feel uncomfortable enough that I would do it, but it would bring me aliveness. And myself, there would be maybe even a new version of the self. Maybe the self-love. Let's finish on this today. Maybe self-love is going towards parts of yourself that make you even more loving and share more love that you can't even imagine exists. They are parts of you that become softer, more generous, more giving, more illuminated. But you have to choose each layer as we go. So self-love is constantly evolving, depending on your mindset, maybe even your age, of saying, you know, I really love to do this in this way, and how can I do it this way that isn't running myself into the ground anymore? Maybe that's your self-love. Maybe it's realizing that things can be easier and allowing them to be easier, rather than having to prove yourself like you did in your 20s and your 30s. And that is taking care of yourself, right? Because maybe you want to work smart rather than work hard. Maybe you want to have a greater reach to people that it would be more caring for you. That would be the self-care. So I think we'll leave it there. There's a lot to think about. You might have to go back and listen to this a few times because I just went with some ideas. Went with But I want to also finish with this because I think this is very important, and I think this came up with some of my students this week. I think when you get to a certain age, whether it be 40 or 50, and sometimes there's an anger and a resentment of, well, I don't need to do that anymore. I don't need to like work so hard. I don't need to, exert myself. And you kind of have bought in to the age thing. You've bought into aging. And you start to kind of give up. Rather than saying that you, and even just recognizing that you've bought into the aging thing, I think is self-care, right? Because I know I did it for a split second and I was like, oh yeah, this is not my vibration. No. How can I be even more healthier than I was when I was younger with less effort? And then I was gravitating towards different things. How can I choose to do different self-care practices that are right for me, that don't involve exertion? How can I tap into the intelligence of my body that is already there because it's been on the planet longer? How can I exercise my neuroplasticity of opening up pathways in my brain with my yoga and my dance or my Pilates? How can I change it up because this isn't working for me? If you've been doing the same thing over and over again and the body's got used to it, you need to start changing it up. And if you keep doing the same hike and the same walk, maybe you need to change it up. If you want to go and walk the Camarero, I think it's called, in Spain, you like, okay, how can I make that happen? Because that would be something to focus on, that would be something to train towards. And also the altitude of that, and taking care of myself, with my food choices. What are the things that I need for my joints? What are the things that is important to me? And also kind of getting off this competitiveness that we can sometimes have in our bodies and with other people, because that is not self-care. Self-care is not scrolling through and seeing what everybody else is doing and then not trusting the messages that you've got for yourself, because that's an aspect of self-love. Self-love is doing what you are here to do and not giving this fixation to what everybody else is doing. And I think even there's been a huge shift in people using, like, I believe I've seen it, that I've seen more people saying that they were unplugging from social media, or that they were taking a social media break for 48 hours and not attached to their feed. And that's taking care of themselves, but then that's also self-love, because I'm feeding myself. Not feeding my feed. Okay? So maybe it's a little bit about quality versus quantity. Right? Quality versus quantity. And I did notice that on some of the platforms they're creating that where you have your close friends or your close circle, that you don't miss anything in their feed. And you can do notifications as well. So that's kind of, rather than having the noise at the forefront the minute you open up your social media, having the things that you want to see and you want to check in on, whether that's friends and what they're up to, or family members. And I think that's really important. But I think it's something that we dance with it. We dance between self-care and we dance with self-love. But self-care is sometimes exaggerated to then feel it as if it's self-love at the expense of self-love. So really ask yourself, what kind of Valentine would I want to go on a date with? What kind of Valentine would I look for? And if that's even with a friend, then that's your Valentine's night. If that's with you, that's your Valentine. Or you need to be like, well, I need to become that for me. If that's to have a little bit more fun in your life, if that's to be a little less fixated on things, if that's to be a little bit more allowing that you don't know the answer to certain things, saying to people, I don't know, but I'll get back to you. But also speaking up, or having a point of view that you want to start to practice. So I hope that's interesting and helpful. I'll be coming at you with, I think in March, with another one of these that's going to be with one of my students, Luke, who is going to be talking about what's easier said than done for him, you know, in his practice. Because I think we tend to tell these stories that, oh, this is where I was at, and look, this is where I am now. But no one wants to tell the nitty-gritty of the dark night of the soul, or, oh my God, this is where I was at, this is what I realized, and this is how I got over it. Because there seems to be, not with my people, because some people still have shame attached to it, which then still has to be cleared. Some people are embarrassed by it rather than embracing it, because you never came out like that, right? You evolved. And in your evolution, you can love every part of that evolution and say, oh my God, like then I was clueless. And that is a part of self-love, knowing that you've improved, knowing that you weren't where you're at today 10 years ago. Because I think what we do is we go back to our 10 years ago, 20 years ago, and we get angry at ourselves because we didn't know what we know now. And that anger at the 20-year-old is still angry at yourself right now. So that's not self-love. So self-love is being able to be like, oh yeah, I was clueless. I had no idea, and that was okay, because no one had any idea. It was the 90s, or it was 2005, and we were still figuring this out. You know, because a lot has, in these last 4 years, never mind the last 2 years, the last 4 years, I would say, since 2018, we are having massive changes, and massive changes in our structures, in our how we dialogue with each other, how we communicate with one another, how we express things to one another, or not. That is also self-love. Self-love is sometimes keeping your mouth shut and being like, okay, now I know. Now I know, and it doesn't really kind of warrant a response, because it's more antagonistic than anything else. So really kind of sit with those things, because maybe the energy that you're putting towards everybody not understanding you and everybody not caring is really a practice of self-love for you. Because when you start loving you, people who want to gaslight you, people that want to brush up against your boundaries, people that want to diminish you, they'll take a hard pass at you. because you're too much work. Or they're not going to be able to extract whatever that thing is that they want to extract for themselves. So it's futile. Lots to think about. So let's sit for a moment together in those notions, like exercise and thought, because this is all we do when we talk like this and we discuss and we share. It's just an exercise in thought for us to be like, oh, maybe that is so, I'm going to sit with that for myself. Or I'm not feeling that, but maybe I see that happening out there with my sister, you know? And we start to kind of play, you know, we start to kind of embrace certain aspects of ourself. So when you place your hands on your heart, and if you're feeling that restriction because you had believed it would be narcissistic to have self-love, I want you to kind of just breathe into that self-love. I want you to drop into your heart and out of your head of what other people are going to think about you if you had self-love. Yeah, really kind of drop into your heart. And really having that recognition, that self-love, what's right for you, what's aligned for you, what feels expansive. And being able to know the difference between am I just being frightened about coming out of this comfort zone? Or is that really a hard no? And trusting that. Deciding that I'm not just going to tag along in my life anymore. I'm going to be in it. Not as a guest star that comes in every so often, but really the principal in this dance in my life. And knowing what I need to take care of in that self-care to be that principal in my life. That principal dancer, that principal innovator, that principal essence. And if I've decided to be that principal, I'm going to call to me the care that I need, the helpers, the supporters, the energy that is required for me to inhabit that. Take a nice deep breath. Thank you, everyone. It was so good to share space with you and this medium that we have together. And really send me messages. Send me DMs or put a comment underneath of something that you realize is self-care, and I can add it to the highlights and put like a little highlight on it so that people can look back if they're needing something that was, oh, what is my self-care, what is my self-love? Maybe they're a little lost. And you know, maybe your quote, maybe your realization will be their realization. It will help them. You know, you'd be surprised at the amount of people who read something, read a line, read a paragraph, hear a story, and they see themselves. And this is what the human condition, the human story is all about, is us saying, oh my God, I was there, this is what I did. I mean, it was a shit show. You know, because healing is a shit show. And when you come into that healing space, dabbling and pretending that you are not where you are at, it can sometimes attract the dabbler as a healer. So when you're all in, they'll be all in. But that's also self-care, right? Of doing your diligence and knowing. I know a lot of people who have said to me over the years, oh yeah, I went to someone else. I knew I should have came to you like 2 years ago, but I didn't. My bad. And now we have to clean up that whole 2-year period of, you know, the whatever that hit the fan. But I ask them a lot of the time, I say, why did you not just, you know, get in touch? Well, I wanted to buy some time and not having to go there. And I think that is when you start to do this work and you do start to go there into the real nitty-gritty places that some people call shadow work, which I just call the work, you start to realize that that is self-love. That you skipping around everybody that isn't going to be able to help you, but maybe it will buy you some time at not getting uncomfortable, is actually starts to create chaos and a disruption within the energy field. Because you know. Just some thoughts. So thank you very much. I will see you soon. And I will, for those of you who have just came on now, I will have this edited and up on YouTube, because it'll be here on IG and over on YouTube. They're the only platforms that I had said that I'd be using, because it's just easier for me. And that's how I like it. And because I enjoy this, but I also enjoy the other things that I have to do. And it's finding that balance, right? You know, rather than, you know, overextending yourself. So thank you so much. Speak to you soon. Take care. Mwah.